This is huge. Thanks to the leaks for Chapter 1078, we now know who the traitor on Egghead Island is. And not only is said traitor someone that almost no one expected, but it's also for a reason that I have not seen anyone mention just yet. And the really cool thing about this reveal is that when you sit down and think about it, it actually all does make perfect sense. But no matter how much sense it makes to me, I have seen fans online questioning how said character could possibly be the traitor given the situation we last saw them in. So in this video, I'm going to quickly explain exactly how Oda set up this oh so juicy reveal. And of course, this goes without saying, but spoilers ahead. Okay, so if you made it this far into the video, then I'm assuming you've already seen the leaks for this week's upcoming chapter, which means that you know that the traitor on Egghead Island has been revealed to be York, the embodiment of greed, and that right there is the key word for why she's doing all of this. Greed. You see, when we were first introduced to York, her greed was represented as having an insatiable hunger that could rival even Luffy, as some of the first and only things we see her do during this arc are eat an insane amount of food, blow it up like a balloon, and then sleep it off. Combining that with her adorable and seemingly harmless personality, it was easy to write her off as the least likely candidate for being the traitor, especially when you have Lilith, the embodiment of evil, and Shaka, the embodiment of good, both acting increasingly suspicious throughout the entire arc. But as we found out, or I guess it's more accurate to say, we'll find out since the chapter is not actually out just yet, but York's greed goes way beyond simply wanting to eat and sleep. No, as it turns out, York's greed has developed into an ambition of wanting to become a celestial dragon. And when you really sit down and think about it, it actually does make perfect sense exactly why York would want to become one. Because I mean, on paper, the celestial dragons have the power and authority to take anything they want in the world for themselves, and no one can tell them no. Well, I mean, people actually can tell them no, but then they'd be making themselves into enemies of the world government, and while we do follow a group of characters who have no problem doing that, most people in the One Piece world don't really want to be on the bad side of the Navy. So they would more than likely just quietly sit by while the Celestial Dragons take whatever they want from them, and for someone who is supposed to be the embodiment of greed, there's no better position to be in than to be in a place of power where you can take anything you want and no one can stop you. Alright, so let's look at our checklist. Okay, motivation, yep, we can check out that box. Her reasoning makes perfect sense for her. Now, okay, now this is the big question. How is it possible? See, that right there, that's a question we have to ask. Exactly how is it possible for York to be the traitor? Because the last time we saw her, she was quite literally turned to stone. And not only that, but right now she should currently be with Usopp and his group, and as of right now, they should be fighting against that snake. So how is it possible for her to show up in the last chapter and kill Shaka? And that right there is exactly where Oda played his clever trick on all of us. You see, in chapter 1075, as you know, York goes up to pet S Snake and then gets turned to stone. And then immediately after being turned to stone, S Snake kicks York right behind her. And then a few panels later, S Snake shoots a beam that sends everyone falling to the floor below them. But here's the thing, and I actually missed this in my first reading of the chapter as well, but if you pay attention, we see that only Usopp and his group actually fall down to the floor below them. S-Snake, as we can see in the chapter, is still standing on the same walkway that they were on originally, which means that because she kicked York behind her, York should still be on that walkway as well. And since we don't know how much time has passed since that scene and the next time we check in with this group in chapter 1077, it's perfectly reasonable to believe that before jumping down to continue fighting, S-Snake could have turned York back to normal, which would have allowed her to go off on her own and kill Shaka. Now, I mean, it does still bring up the question of exactly how York was able to pull off all the things we've seen the traitor do so far without being caught, especially since for most of those things she was actually actively with people at the time, like say when the Dendemushi security cameras got destroyed. But there's no saying that York might not be working with a partner. Like say for example Caribou, we haven't seen him since the very beginning of this arc when Zoro pretty much kicked him off the ship. Who's to say that at some point he didn't meet up with York before she met up with all the other Vegapunks and the Straw Hats and struck a deal with him? There's also a handful of Seraphim that we haven't been introduced to just yet, so who's to say that one of them aren't on Egghead Island working under York's direct orders as well? Now, one thing I am pretty much certain of, if York does have a partner, I do not think it's going to be revealed to be Saturn. At least not the one that's currently on Egghead Island with her, that partner. It might be that she's working with Saturn, but I doubt that he's actually made it all the way to Egghead Island just yet. I think we're still waiting on him and Kizaru to actually show up on the island in the next few chapters. But yeah, York has now officially been revealed to be the traitor, and she is now currently face to face with Stella, the original Vegapunk himself. And given that everyone else is currently busy fighting against the toughest opponents they've ever fought, only time will tell if they'll be able to defeat their opponents and make their way over to Stella and save him from almost certain death.